Okay, so I am here with Ryan Gibney. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
So Ryan is actually my coach as well. We've been working together for, I think, since around September, October last year, and he's got me so much stronger
Yeah,
than I've ever been. So Ryan has his own Hyrox Strong program, and he started coaching athletes for Hyrox. Ryan, I'm going to basically just go through a load of questions and basically give the listeners as much information as we can, and you can educate them as much as you do me. So I'm going to go with it now. To start with, mate, what is Conjugate and what does it mean?
okay, so this is the big question everyone always asks, and everyone normally butchers. Conjugate simply means to join together.
Cool.
Basically it's a periodization method or theory or principle, whatever you prefer, that come from the former Soviet Union. It's more popularized because of Westside Barbell. For those who don't know, is the strongest gym in the world, but they're powerlifters, and because they made the system really popular, everyone thinks it's a powerlifting system. But if you go back to its origins, it was actually made for track and field. It was made for Olympic athletes. It's just that Louis Simmons of Westside Barbell found its strengths and pushed it to another direction to make super strong people. How I use it is somewhere in the middle. So before I get ahead of myself with that one, I'll just explain what I mean by what you are actually joining together. So Conjugate is basically, we have a day where we work maximal strength. We have a day where we work basically speed and power, which is called dynamic effort. And in between both these days, we support this with what's called the repetition effort. So repetition effort is kind of your volume stuff, strengthening weak links. So that volume stuff's kind of bodybuilding methods. And we do this for both your upper body and your lower body. So rather than using that traditional kind of style of linear periodization, what I mean by that is you do a strength block, a hypertrophy block, so muscle building block, and then you'll do like a power block. So you neglect all these other previous qualities and skills. So something's got to give for the next one to progress, and so on and so on. You're in this vicious cycle. Conjugate, we train all these methods at the same time at varying levels. So as we're increasing strength and power, we're also increasing muscular endurance, durability, strength, power from both sides of the fence with this one. So we're working explosive power, explosive strength, ballistic strength. Nothing gets missed. Long-winded, I know.
Which is basically why you need it for Hyrox, because there's nothing really missed there.
Yeah, well, if you think about Hyrox and all hybrid sports, the giveaway's in the name, it's hybrid. You're not training one strength quality or one physical quality at one time. The whole point of a hybrid athlete is that you're pretty much well-rounded, good at everything, which sounds very similar to the conjugate method, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Being strong on its own is not good enough. If you can't display that with speed, then you're a one-trick pony. So we need to be good at everything. I hope I didn't go too far off course there.
Perfect. It's perfect. Okay, mate. So we can dive into that a little bit more about like how you train people for Hyrox and whatnot. But I'm just going to go through my list of questions. So obviously, mate, already you've just demonstrated your experience by talking deep into Conjugate, and you can hear your experience. So I want you to talk to me more about your experience. Obviously, I know you as my coach, and I know just by the way you talk to me, I learn so much from you, and I also implement that into my coaching and myself even more, like as an athlete. But so I can just tell whenever I'm talking to you, you're just full of information, and I'll ask you one question and you'll give me 5 answers. So talk to me about your experience, mate. I don't know if you've had that before from people, but tell me about your experience. Like, how did you start getting into coaching? How long you been doing it? What was the first thing you did as a coach? Was it just like strength and conditioning, or how did it all start, mate?
Ooh, this one is long-winded. So basically, my journey started a long, long time ago. I've been doing this professionally for over 20 years. My origin, if you want, was complete opposite where I am now. I boxed and was more into combat sports, but I also went in the military straight from school. So my ambitions were basically completely hybrid, but before it had a name. I was training to do a job within the military. So my job there was to kind of be fit, be strong, be fast, do it all, which in that process managed to break myself because I'd done everything. Back then, when I joined the army in 95, sports science was quite a rare thing. The answer to everything was If you're slow, run faster. If you're not fit enough, run more. If you're not strong enough, do more. So as a result of that, I got broke. So when I got injured, I basically got put into a rehabilitation platoon to get myself fixed, which is when I was exposed to some high-level coaches. Then I was exposed to physiotherapists, strength and conditioning coaches to get me basically back moving again. And that's when I fell in love with this whole concept. I had no idea I was overtraining. I didn't know nothing about different energy systems, strength, muscles. Suddenly I'm immersed in this world of it and I'm just drawn in. And that's when I realised I fucking love this shit. I need to know more. And that's where it began. Long story short, I got injured, I got medically discharged, got booted out on my arse. Right. I know I'll become a personal trainer because I love this stuff. And then realised when I become a personal trainer that the amount of knowledge you're given was very basic and I wanted to know more. Meanwhile, I'm doing this, I'm playing a bit of rugby. I told you it was long-winded. Being a lunatic, I found I was half good at this stuff. I ended up basically being a professional rugby player for a while, whilst being a personal trainer. As Ed Lister, I'm not very good one. That's probably why you never see me doing that. But that exposed me then to strength and condition, which put me down a rabbit hole where I went to university, studied strength and realised I was a far better coach than I was a player. So I started becoming an S&C coach with the academy. Basically, earned me stripes training general pop as a PT by night and a strength and conditioning coach in rugby by evening for an academy, which then led me into the first team, which from the first team led me working in national squads, where I spent 6 years in Georgia as the head of their national squad. I've done lots of consulting for rugby sevens teams, fighters, a host of athletes, which then brought me to being in the facility where I am now, the Athlete Factory in Chester, with one of my former bosses, a former England player, which we had this concept when we were working in Sri Lanka to build our own facility and give the secrets of elite sport basically to everybody.
Nice.
Whilst this is happening, CrossFit's booming. You know, for CrossFit's many good things, we see many bad things. So we're getting a lot of broken CrossFitters. And we found it was really good to show people another way, which again has kind of brought me to this day, really, where I've pretty much for 20 plus years trained pretty much everyone from every sport under the sun.
Nice.
And that's where we've got to today.
Nice.
I told you it was a long-winded one.
So you've been around then. You've been around.
I've been around, mate. Yeah.
What would you say in this 20-year career? What would you say has been your biggest thing you've learned then as a coach? Like, was it not to overtrain, or was that more of an athlete? What would you say as a coach is the thing that you've learned, the biggest thing, your biggest takeaway?
Everybody's so different. Everyone's so individual. What works great for me might not work great for you. And pretty much, you cannot take anything for granted. Less is more. Found with general athletes, pro and amateur, everyone's obsessed with volume. Everyone thinks more is better. They've just got to do more. More is very rarely the answer. Smart is always better. You know, everyone finds people want to go complex before they can master basic. Everyone just wants to get to the finish line, but no one wants to do the work. So it's just a case I find as a coach, my biggest take-homes is learning to slow people down, and progression takes many forms. Find a form of progression that relates to that individual and push that, turn them dials, push them boundaries. No two people are the same. Everyone's got different goals. A lot of people want to end up in the same place, but everyone's journey is different.
Yeah. Nice. I like that. And what would you say, mate, then? So obviously biggest learning curve we just said. So in this 20-year career so far, you must have had some mistakes. What's the biggest mistake you've made?
Lifting too much weight. It's very rarely you hear me say things like, you can be too strong because you can never be too strong, but you can push it too fast. Basically, sacrificing form. People, myself included, in the past been guilty of it, sacrificing form to move the needle, to move a number. You know, the numbers are irrelevant at the end of the day. Your body doesn't care what's on a bar, what's on a cable, what's on a sled. It just knows stress. It just knows strain. It doesn't care what number that strain is. And just knowing when to push and when to pull. The absolute biggest lesson is underestimating recovery. Especially the older you get, recovery is so important. You know, you can only train as hard as you can recover. If your recovery is shit, it doesn't matter what workout program you're following, what workout you're doing, what exercises you're doing, who wrote your program. You can't recover from it. You're never going to progress.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I was younger, recovery was an afterthought, because when you're in your 20s, it's just a bit of a given. You get away with it.
Yeah. That's the whole. We all say that. We all heard that when we were younger. Wait till you're at my age, and then you start to get to that age, and you're like, yep, I know what they were talking about now.
Yeah, everything gets.
As a coach then, mate, so what's been your biggest achievement so far? I know we'll talk about it a bit later about what you've had, the results you've had with Sandy. Would you say, what's your biggest achievement so far as a coach? Was it with one of your athletes, or is it achieving something as a coach that you wanted to achieve?
I will put this one down to my rugby days. When I went to Georgia Rugby Union, they were average at best, tier 2 nation with no infrastructure. When we went in, we put a complete infrastructure in place from academy right up. Went to the 2015 World Cup, shocked everyone, played people, had a great game against the All Blacks. Yeah, we got beat, but we actually put points on the board. Won 2 games, qualified. But bigger than that was that infrastructure is blooming. Long after my tenure, the Georgians have embraced it. Now they're just bringing through such good athletes because they never had bad habits, because they never had any habits. So we created a infrastructure which they've run with, and I'm particularly proud of that, because I'll be honest, I never thought it would work.
And is it still going today? That what you
It's
created?
still going today.
Nice.
Yeah, and they're absolutely killing it. They're absolutely doing really well. Don't get me wrong; they've improved from what I put in place, and they've continued to grow. Because they're great people and they're great staff, and they're basically the nation's behind them. But they fully hard to embrace that. And it's nice to know that I was one of the first involved in that, and it still stinks of me, bits of it. I look at it and think, well, that still stinks of me. That.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so let's now dive into Hyrox a little bit more. Obviously, you are Mr. Hyrox coach on the planet, is pretty much following the Conjugate method, whether they admit that or not. So. We'll talk about that bit again in a bit, but let's talk about, for your experience that you've got, obviously your rugby days, your military days. How do you believe then that has helped you with Hyrox? Is that just the knowledge and obviously what you learned at uni? How do you believe that all of that experience has kind of molded you into that perfect Hyrox strength coach?
I would say it's exposure to a wild variety of people. I think because I've always worked in a massive demographic of different people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, different abilities, I've been quite lucky that I've had exposure to a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different outcomes, a lot of different people. Like going back to the Conjugate method, I'm a big believer in learning from source. So when I first got exposed to it secondhand, I then went to the source, being Westside Barbell, to learn directly from Westside Barbell. Like when I wanted to learn about speed training, I seeked out who I could find as the best speed coach at the time, which was Charlie Francis, who's now passed away. He was Ben Johnson's coach. And again, he was light years ahead. And what I found was one door would lead me to another door. So I kept on going down the doors. I didn't want to get second and third hand information. I wanted to get it from the source and then make it my own. So these things, again, I went and looked at different sports. I went and looked at different coaches. I studied how they moved and what I could take and improve for my athletes, which was rugby at the time. But doing this over a number of years, I found that, I know I'm repeating myself, but whenever someone presents themselves to me, it's probably not the first time I've seen or heard it, their situation, where they're coming from, what they're trying to achieve. And then they're telling me about this latest great method they've just seen on TikTok, and I was doing it 15 years ago. It's like the reason Sandy came to me in the first place, which is a funny tale. He wanted to get good at the sleds. I'd never heard of Hyrox, and not many people had 2 years ago when I first started training Sandy. He just got back from the Worlds in Vegas, felt his sleds needed work. So he wanted somebody who knew the way around sleds. So he looked for someone with a rugby background. So again, everyone's like, oh, what's this sled training? I made Sandy, I was doing it in the night.
Yeah. It's your bread and butter.
Pushing heavy sleds. It's my bread and butter. So I knew a few tips and tricks, which obviously enhanced his program right from the go. Just things like that, really, mate. That answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. coming back to then a minute ago, I asked you about biggest mistake, and you said like lifting too much. This question is similar, like talking about Hyrox now, and obviously strength. There's a fine balance between being too heavy, so because you need to be obviously strong. What would you say the most important thing is when it comes to that? Like, is it obviously you need to be a fast runner because the majority, over half of the race is running.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? I know obviously you're not a running coach. Your bread and butter is the strength side of things. But what would you say in your experience so far? Obviously, I know that Sandy's running is like another level. But with the athletes that you've been working with, what have you found the best balance to be?
As in ratios, as in days or splits, or just what my thoughts are on how to lay it all out?
What your thoughts are in terms of a training program? Obviously, I know there might be certain phases of training where you'll have less strength because you need to focus on running, and vice versa, maybe more strength. But general population really with your athletes.
Okay, so general pop really is, I'm going to get some hate for this, but is too weak as a whole. Hybrid athletes, not all, I don't speak in absolutes, but a lot of them are coming from a more endurance or team sport background. So strength training's always been an afterthought. But what you've got to remember is strength underpins every other physical quality. So if you're stronger, it takes less energy to move your body through space. So if you're stronger, running should be more efficient and take less from you. Pushing a sled should be more efficient because now you've got a bigger engine. So pushing that sled shouldn't feel as heavy as it used to, so it shouldn't be as taxing on your body and your breathing. Little things like that. But to make it even more simpler, by integrating it into a hybrid model, I like to, what I stole from Charlie Francis, which is called a high-low model of training. So we have high days and we have low days. So if you think of a high day, we're going to lift really heavy weights for your lower body. It makes sense that that day is coupled with your harder speed or interval days. So all that high neural stress, so taxing work on your body, gets done on the same day, and that's followed by a low day. So that day's your zone 2 work. It can be your off-feet erg work, it can be a zone 2 run, and then you follow that up again by another high day. This day might be your hills or your tempo work on the track, and it might be, a dynamic effort or a speed lower body day. So all the speeds on the same day. So we just have this high, low model where we're not pushing everything back to back. There's always a hard day followed by a recovery day. That way, the two don't compete and they're not negatively affecting each other, because that day where we've got a tin roll on is all together, and we know tomorrow it's all about more of a recovery focus. And then the day after, maybe again, we're going hard again, so we know. So all the muscle soreness and things you're going to get, it comes on a day where there's not much work, there's not much demand for work. It's a recovery day. It could be an off-feet day on the bike. It could be some station work. It could be a complete day off. And that's the model I tend to use. It's the strength split. Now, in regards to strength split, the general public, and people new to real strength training, I would only put them on a 2-a-week strength split. So what I mean by that, you'd have 2 days of strength. So the rest of your week, you split up between recovery and basically your CV. And that also goes for somebody like myself. If I was getting into Hyrox now, being more strength and power based, I know my running's shit. So that needs the focus of my work. For me, it makes no sense to do 3-4 days of strength. I'm already good at that. And I know it's me running that's going to suffer. So I need more days to run, less days for strength. And conversely, in an off season for someone who's, a little bit too small, a little bit too weak, awesome runner, well, they need the polar opposite to me. They need 3 to 4 days of strength to pack some size and strength on while they maintain the running. And then the closer to season they get, we start getting more specific to the task. Then we start losing strength days. It becomes more balanced. It looks more like a beginner's program again. We were on the 2 days because now the focus is Hyrox, not getting strong, not getting fitter per se. The focus is on being specific to the sport we're playing.
I actually, on the way back from Nice, we bumped into Sandy in the airport, and I was obviously chatting to him a little bit about you, and he mentioned he used to be on 4 strength days a week. Then I think it dropped down to 3, and now we pretty much just do 2. And he's found that to work because he's managed to get his strength up there where it needs to be.
Yeah. And that also backs down to what I was saying about recovery. Because, we got Sandy so strong, it got to the point where the strength wasn't a weakness anymore now. So all the bits we wanted to bring up, we brought up. So that was more a case of, let's lose a day, see how we go, but let's bump kind of some of your more intense cardio up. That worked. Then the main kicker was short turnarounds between competitions. It was okay, let's try 2. Let's really focus on your station work now. 2 days of strength will do it. And what we found, because he had the recovery, he actually got stronger. So his strength actually increased while his fitness was increasing and his specific Hyrox skills were fitter. So then when he moved to Doha, now he's took a new country on, brought his family. He's got a full-time job in an office and his schedule is completely out the window. So his recovery is impaired. So we stayed on a 2-day schedule just to allow more time with his family because the strength was built. We built that last year. We just couldn't afford to go backwards. And then this year, as everybody's seeing, we worked with his running coach, Charlie, to bring his running speed up. So again, the strength had to fit part of that plan. So to be part of that plan, it could only really be 2 days.
Yeah. I guess you're trying to, it's hard to, I see a lot of things out there, people trying to give 100% of a strength program and 100% of a running program, and we can only take 100%, and they're trying to do 100% of 2 polar opposites, and it's hard to balance. And from my experience, I believe a lot of people are trying to do that too often, and then they're ending up with injuries or setbacks and or disappointment, right?
It's like I said near the start, you're only as good as what you can recover from. And if you can't recover from that workload, you're never going to progress and you're just going to end up frustrated.
I don't have this question written down. It just came to my mind. Do you train many girls? I see most of the people that you're training are guys. Have you got any female clients?
Yeah, I train 2 in person and online. I don't directly coach any, but there quite a few have bought me program. So quite a few have done a Hyrox Strong or on a Hyrox Strong program. Nice. But I don't directly coach them.
Okay. So now you mentioned, that leads me on to our next question then. So Hyrox Strong, obviously this is a very similar situation to Sandy by the sounds of it. I was looking to get stronger at my stations. I knew that I needed to build strength. I'd never really given it the attention or focus that it deserves or it needs to become a better Hyrox athlete. So I did a bit of searching and found the Hyrox program. I bought it, had a look through it, and I was like, okay, but I need something like more for me, not a program. So that's when I reached out and we started working together. So talk to me about Hyrox Strong, mate. What is it? I know that you've just launched an off-season program as well. Dive into it, mate.
So Hyrox Strong basically is, for me, I tried to make it, I can only coach so many people online. I can only coach so many people in person. And I understand that that's not doable, viable, or affordable for everyone. But a lot of people asked me for programs, advice. I kept on getting the same questions. What's Conjugate? How do you do it? How do you train Sandy? How's this work? How's that work? The other. So I thought to myself, okay, so what is the low-hanging fruit for most people? What is kind of the greater good for the greater amount of people? And I'll write a little template. It started off as an article, and I just and I just gave like an example week. And that generates a lot of interest. So I thought, okay, I might as well write the rest of it as a 6-week phase. So I just done an initial 2-3 week phases, a conjugate model, but a basic one. And like we've discussed today, I spaced out where I would put certain runs. It's non-specific. It's just basically easy run.
Yeah.
It's like hard run kind of. And basically a Metcon or a Hyrox style workout of a weekend. And it just evolved from there. So the whole premise behind it is it's accessible to everyone. You don't really need any special equipment, but it's an introduction to the conjugate method and my style of coaching and my style of training. But it's a nice kind of simplified version. But as you found, it's not actually made for anybody. It's not personalized to you. It's following the basic primary movement patterns, fundamental movement patterns. Sorry, there's a squat, there's a hinge, there's a push, there's a pull, there's a carry. That's how we move in life. So that's how a balanced program should be. And that's what it's based around. And as the phases go on, it gets a bit more difficult, gets a bit more sexy. That's all.
Gets a bit heavier.
Stronger, you get a lot quicker.
So with that then, mate, so we've had a few discussions about your Hyrox Strong program that seems like there's a lot of coaches buying it, we're noticing.
There is. I don't know if people know, but when you buy it, I do actually give a shit. I do look who buys and looks at my programs. I do care. I do welcome all feedback and all questions. So if you're someone who's bought my program, feel free to reach out. Don't hide in the dark. I will answer anything. And I've noticed a lot of coaches buy my program, well-known ones in the Hyrox space. And then I do see them pop up on my Instagram feed doing stuff directly from the program, which is fine because, everything's borrowed. We've all borrowed something from somewhere. But I am also a big believer if I use somebody's methods, as I have in the off-season, I've used Charles Poliquin's shock method. As I've just said, give Charles Poliquin a shout-out because I've learned this method from him.
Yeah.
Because for me, you become a better coach from learning from coaches better or more experienced than you. Yeah. So it's just playing it forward. As I said earlier, I try to go to source to learn things, so I never hide the source.
Place that it's actually something to be proud of, I think, as a coach. Like, I love to tell people that I learn a lot of my strength stuff from you, because it came down from someone else, and then it just came down the chain and it ended with me, and then it gets passed over to my client. So yeah, I always tell you I use a lot of your stuff.
And that's the thing, it's, we're in an industry of sharing information. There's a lot of shite out there, so we should be sharing good information with each other, bringing the sport forward and bringing each other forward. And the only way we do that is by, giving each other a bit of credit, and hopefully we send some work to each other and we all grow together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one thing I can definitely say is I have got a lot stronger working with you so far. And from what I've learned, I've managed to get a lot of my clients a lot stronger as well. So it's great. So what we want to happen is happening in this little space here. So hopefully if some people listen, hopefully you get some shout outs.
Definitely. For me, that's the best compliment you can get, because everyone's in things with different things, but I genuinely like helping people. I want to help people. I get nothing satisfies my ego if you want better than knowing someone telling me I've helped them get better. I don't care if people win world titles. It's cool. I don't care about getting shout outs. But if a person says to me, I've helped them, or one thing's made their life a bit better, that makes me feel good. It makes me want to do more. It makes me want to put more out. Getting all soft.
I can completely understand how that would feel. Like, you see people wanting to use your stuff, and there's no better compliment, right? As a coach, if someone's using your stuff and they're, obviously it feels nice for them to let you know that as well. You want to know about it, right? You want to know that someone's using it, not just find out.
That's it. And we're all evolving and we're all experimenting. So if I deliver it myself, my way, without sounding like an absolute arsehole, I know it's going to work because I've been doing it for years. So it's nice to see if other people are using it, if it's working for them, if their delivery is better than mine, if their interpretation is better than mine. It's all positive feedback that we can all use.
Yeah, exactly. Mate, you said you've been coaching Sandy for 2 years?
Yeah, probably a bit longer.
Yeah, what's he like as a client?
A challenge. Now, Sandy's great, mate. Sandy's great. He's obviously, because I spend that much time with him, he's a good personal friend now as well. But if any of you have met Sandy, you'll know Sandy's all business all of the time. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't let off. He is like the ultimate professional, which works for him and against him. He gets stuff done, basically. He doesn't miss a beat. His nutrition's dialed in, his recovery's dialed in, his sleep's dialed in. He does whatever it takes on a daily basis. So he's an absolute pleasure to work with and to coach, because he does exactly what you say. And he asks questions. He wants to know why. He always wants to improve. He always wants to get better. He's great. But I'm also his counsellor, as he'll tell you.
Mentor.
No, he's great, mate. He's very misunderstood, Sandy. I think people think because he can be a bit quiet that he's arrogant. He's far from it. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He's got a heart of gold. But like I say, he's just super focused. I don't think he's used to getting the attention he was getting. He's better with it now because he's more used to it. But people misinterpreted him turning up to do a job with him being a little bit arrogant or rude, which he's not. He's just, everyone's got their own personality. When he turns up for a Hyrox, he was turning up to compete or win. But, he's a lot better. He's a lot more relaxed now. He's found his flow a bit more. Yeah. it's not a natural environment, is it? Let's be honest. Anyone who's been to a Hyrox, the atmosphere is intense as anything, isn't it? It exists as a spectator, never mind competing.
I was supporting Danny in February in Turin before I raced in the evening. I think we were working together at the time. And I was exhausted, stood at the start line because I'd been supporting her, and just the adrenaline and the atmosphere and the music and the people. And I was just like, wow, I felt like I'd done a Hyrox and I hadn't even started my race. So, yeah. And watching the guys at Worlds, again, same thing. Like we didn't compete in Nice, but it was like it was intense. It was. I mean, it was the best race so far. That race, it was insane. How did you feel, mate, when you were watching that? Would you watch it on the live stream?
I was watching it on the live stream. I haven't screamed at a laptop so much for a long time. It was intense. When I seen Sandy get penalised on that sled and I seen him look confused, I thought, oh, shit, here we go. I thought, please don't erupt now. But he handled it really well. He just sucked it up. And I think, as weird as it sounds, it really lit a fire under his arse, and it helped him to find another gear. Because he blasted out of that, and how he made up that lead again, I've got no idea.
Yeah,
but he just found another gear. He just found another level, and when the target went off on the new digital wall balls, I thought, oh my God, please don't walk off, not this close. And, he was so not against Alex or anyone else who competed. He was so unlucky not to get that. Everyone involved. Fuck me.
When he came into the lunges, I think it was, and he's like cheering the crowd up, that was like he's feeling confident. And it was so good to see him feeling that confident at that point in the race. But yeah, it was obviously very unfortunate, and just a really, I mean, it's so nice now that it's not just a one-man show. It seems like it's going to be interesting next year and going forward, and hopefully in the women's category as well. I wanted to ask you one more thing about Sandy, mate, and then if there's anything, then we'll get wrapped up. But so I wanted to talk about, I know that he raced his first race. I think he ran like a 109 pro. Is that right? His first ever Hyrox?
I think it was, 109. Yeah, not far off.
Yeah. And obviously, if you look at what he's running now, I think his best is what, around the 54, is it? Around the 54s?
I think it's 54s, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Stockholm, maybe. So obviously he's progressed that much with his Hyrox times. How much has he progressed with his strength numbers? So I know we said earlier we're not just focusing on numbers, but obviously he's moving the bar well. So what sort of numbers, when he came to you, he wanted to get better at the sled, what sort of numbers was he hitting then, and what sort of numbers is he hitting now? Or is he just moving the bar better and faster?
All the above, really. So we've increased the load, but everything's moving better. Everything's tighter. Everything's kind of just a lot slicker. The movement patterns are there because we focus on quality rather than quantity, because he's super strong. So you're walking that fine balance of kind of greatness and being broken. So sled-wise, he was always above comp weight. The difference now is we can pretty move anything we put on it, and it'll move faster and more efficient. So with the sleds, it wasn't about loading them up too much, because I'm a big believer in, once you get past, 2.5 body weights per se, or comp weight plus a quarter, you're not improving. You're not really improving. You're just playing with fatigue, and you're using the weight of the sled against the carpet. Yeah. It's not a true balance, because your form's going to change too much. You're going to start learning a different movement pattern. Your body position's going to be different, so it's not going to be your true race position. But if you allow a quarter above your competition sled, that's going to account for any shit carpet, if you want, that people like to moan about. This carpet's different, that carpet's different, that sled felt heavy, this one felt light. If you work... Well, the number one rule is don't include the weight of the sled when you put weight on the sled, and then go above that a quarter. And if you do that, no carpet's ever going to matter. So just little things like that. We just got worked above comp weight, not ridiculous, but kept the same movement plan, kept the efficiency, increased the volume, went from 20-meter pushers to 40-meter pushers, back down to 10s, multiple sets, doing it with fatigue, without fatigue. But bar-wise, I would go as far to say Sandy's strength has probably doubled.
Nice.
In the last 2 years. And when I say double, that's not a dig against him. He just wasn't lifting that heavy, as most hybrid athletes don't, because they don't feel the need to. It's not that they can't, they just never have. Because they're scared. A lot of athletes are scared of putting muscle mass on. They associate strength with size. And they think, if I lift heavy, I'm going to get slow. I'm going to get beat up. I'm going to get injured. Where that strength will actually build some resilience and will stop you getting injured.
Yeah.
That extra bit of strength is going to increase your work capacity. It's going to make heavyweights feel light. It's just going to carry over so much into other aspects of your game. And if you do it, and you do it well, you suddenly realise when you do things like dynamic effort methods or the speed work, when you're pulling a sled, suddenly you've got a lot more. When you do burpee broad jumps, suddenly you've got a lot more snap off the floor. But you haven't actually trained burpee broad jumps for a month, so what's going on?
Call it a more pop off the ground. I feel like I'm popping off the ground much more. I had this conversation with Sandy in the airport, how I found the pulling strength that we've been doing has a direct carryover to my rowing. The banded deadlifts, essentially you're standing up on a rower, right? It's hex bar deadlifts banded, you're doing a row, but you're just hinging, right? So I found a really nice crossover there, and actually got to a point, I think it was earlier this year, it was, or maybe back end of last year, I was in one of our classes on the rower, and I'm pulling the rower, and I'm looking at the pace. I'm thinking, this pace, it feels really easy. Like, this has never felt this easy. And I was like, I think it's time for a 2K test to see where I'm at. And I absolutely smashed my last test. I hardly touched the rower. I'd hardly rowed. And Sandy said the same thing. He said that he doesn't do much rowing, but through his strength training, his rowing has become really good.
But with the egg work until closer to season and in season, when we need to just polish it. And in reality, we want the rower to be a recovery station in a race, don't we? So, like I was saying, if you're strong and efficient, that recovery pace is a lot higher, but a lot less taxing.
Yeah. Then you can
and that's ultimately the goal
to the race.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mate, is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we wrap things up?
No, mate, unless you've got any questions.
No, I've gone through all my lists. So the other thing is, how can people reach out to you if they want coaching, if they want to get as strong as me? I mean, as strong as Sandy. How can they reach out? How can they get on the Hyrox Strong program or get on online coaching from you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Conjugate SP on Instagram. For coaching, Hyrox Strong programs, you can just get them on there. The links are there, or you can DM me on Instagram. I would give you my email, but there's no way you're going to understand my accent and how to spell it. But if you can, it's Ryan at conjugatesportsperformance.com. Good luck. If you're lucky, George may put subtitles on this and you might be able to understand the word I've said. But again, any questions or anything or follow-up from this podcast, feel free to contact me. I'm an open book. I will answer any questions anyone's got.
Awesome. Mate, thank you so much for coming on and giving me your time again, and looking forward to continue getting stronger with you. And I hope that people do start giving you the credit on social media that you do deserve, including Sandy. I know that he does now. Yeah. It's probably more of a forgetful thing.
What about bone in his body? He's just too caught up in weighing out his frigging rice pudding. Exactly. Honey, the filthy animal he puts on them. Disturbs me.
All right, mate, I'll leave it there. And I'll get this out as soon as we can. Thanks for your time, mate.
No problem. You're welcome, mate. Take care.
Thanks.
Speak soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.